2 years ago, I was out at the CodeX FutureLaw conference, and I got to see a great talk by Jim Sandman, the president of the Legal Services Corporation. And he discussed 10 ways to improve legal service delivery and decrease the justice gap. And one of Jim's suggestions was that rather than ranking law firms based on revenue and profit, that what we really need to do is rank law firms based on technology adoption. And as I was sitting in the audience, I thought, well, this is a great idea, and someone is surely going to jump on that. Yet, 1 year later, here's Jim looking quite distressed because no one had done anything with it. So sitting in the audience at that time, I decided that I wanted to tackle this. I wanted to try to think, how would we describe and measure innovation and technology adoption in the legal industry? And so I thought, what better way to do this than to apply an innovation framework to do that, to apply the methods that we teach to our students at Michigan State. So what's the challenge, right? You look in the lower left, this is the improvement kata. What's the challenge? Where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? We want to have a measure of legal services innovation. What's the current condition? Well, we don't have anything right now. So how could I create a minimum viable product? How could we start describing and measuring innovation? So I went back to Michigan State, put together a research team, Jordan Galvin, Sean Acosta, Andrew Burgess, Jameson Joyce, Shelley Reed, and Anita Western, and we set out to tackle this project, and we did it over last summer. Now, why measure innovation? Well, part of the reason is one of the things we hear a lot about right now are a lot of opinions and anecdotes about how law firms and lawyers are innovating and what difference it's making in the industry. Well, I wanted to start pairing that with some data. How could we describe what we think a model for being innovative looks like, and then try to measure whether innovation is in fact happening in the industry? Want to introduce transparency, and in fact, I've heard from quite a few corporate legal counsel now who are using the Innovation Index to help decide with convergence programs which law firms they want to hire to do their work. Raise awareness among folks like these, like what are other law firms doing? What are the other lawyers doing to innovate? Foster accountability, right? We've talked a lot about improving legal services and improving access. How do we make sure we're accountable as lawyers for improving the profession and improving access? And then empowering consumers, right? Multiple types of clients, and also law students should be looking at indices of innovation and to decide where they're going to go to law school and what kind of careers they're going to pursue. So the minimum viable product I put together consists of a catalog of law firm innovations, an index of 260 international law firms, and then a law school innovation index, a prototype of that. So starting off with the catalog, what were we trying to do here? Well, you probably all have read articles about different things that law firms and lawyers are doing, different kind of standalone innovations. But no one had kind of undertaken to curate all of this information and pull it together, start trying to categorize it. So if you're a data privacy lawyer, for example, what are other lawyers doing in this space? What kind of technologies are they using? So that was really the point of this. Another thing, and this is the first graph I'll show you, is measuring also kind of differences in innovation around the globe. And we hear a lot of anecdotes about the United Kingdom being ahead of the US on innovation. And so here was a data point to suggest that, okay, these anecdotes seem to have some truth to them, because when we put together this catalog, we in fact had more innovations coming out of the United Kingdom than we did out of the United States. And breaking these down into consulting services, products, and just other innovative services in the delivery of legal services. Looking at different areas of law. So for example, a lot of the innovations that we're seeing in the marketplace apply to all types of law practices, but we're starting to see this also spread beyond some of the usual suspects, where we're seeing technology-assisted review being used for like compliance and transactions and e-discovery. We're starting to see it applied in more and more different areas. I mentioned privacy and data security, employment law, antitrust. So this is also a nice resource to be able to look and see what area of law you're practicing in and what are other law firms and lawyers doing. And then what are the tools or disciplines driving it? We hear a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. Well, in fact, artificial intelligence is driving a lot of these innovations. Expert systems, project management, that is driving a lot of the innovation we see, and so on. Now, all of this information is available on the website, legaltechinnovation.com. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at that, and I'm going to be going through this kind of quick just to give you some highlights. And then it's broken down. We've got a table of every one of the law firms that has an entry in the catalog, and you can drill down even further to see who they're partnering with. This is Ackerman Data Law Center. Jeff Scherer built that right here in Chicago. They're working with Thomson Reuters and Neota Logic to have an expert system to help deliver data breach advice to their clients. And you can find a link to the law firm website to learn more about it. And then there's a link there where you can submit your innovation. So some of you in the audience, matter of fact, a couple of people reached out to me before this conference and said, I want to be on your innovation index. Well, there's a link right on the website. Fill in the information and we'll get you included there. All right, so now what about measuring innovation across the industry? This just gives us a sense of some of the firms that we know are doing things. What about those other firms that we haven't heard anything about? How do we measure innovation across the industry? Well, it turns out every major law firm has a website. And on their website, they're telling their clients what it is that they're doing. So presumably, if they're innovating in these different areas, we read about it on their website. So let's look at the website for the Am Law 200, Canadian Top 30, and the Global 100. Create a model for innovation, right? Create 10 different categories. If a law firm is truly innovating, what would we expect to find on its website? So I identified 10 categories where we use Google advanced searches to find the number of hits in these 10 different categories. Alternative fees, project management, process improvement, knowledge management and automation basics, data analytics, artificial intelligence, legal operations, proactive law, and blockchain. Blockchain's a little bit of a hybrid. It's a technology, but then there are a lot of lawyers looking at how you use blockchain to improve legal service delivery. So what happens when we do this? Oh, before I show you some of the stats, I want to point out that there's some caveats. And this is all on the website, right? The hypothesis is if you're talking about this as a law firm, then presumably you're doing something. And as lawyers, we have certain obligations when we tell the public what we're doing to actually make sure that those are true representations, right? So there's some reason to believe that if you say you're innovating in a way, that you're actually doing it. But there also may be a gap between the law firm says what it's doing and what it is in fact doing inside of the law firm. And that could cut both ways when we're doing this index. Also, this is the big law innovators. But of course, I just showed you the catalog where there are no limitations. So smaller law firms are listed in the catalog. So that's kind of where we pick up the smaller law firms that are innovating. But one of the key things I really want to focus on is the fact that we might be just measuring. There might be some firms that are kind of throwing money at a couple of projects here and there. Are they truly doing what it's going to take to innovate, to continuously improve and move the industry forward, move our profession forward? No, probably not. So it's not capturing those organizations that are really aiming to become learning organizations and empower everyone inside of the organization to continuously improve and innovate. And when I say everyone, I don't just mean all the lawyers. I mean the technologists, the paralegals, the admins, the marketing people, like everyone empowered inside of the organization to improve legal service delivery. So when we look at this, we see some good evidence that, in fact, law firms are doing a lot in quite a few of these categories. Now, blockchain is a little bit of an example of an outlier because some law firms have practice groups around that, so you've got some false positives, but a lot of activity around it. Next is project management. So the word has been out there for a while that clients expect their law firms to engage in project management. In fact, so we see a lot of hits across these 260 websites. A lot for artificial intelligence, analytics, and alternative fee agreements as well. When you look at different jurisdictions, again, we see some evidence to suggest that the United Kingdom is in fact a bit further ahead on innovation. You see particularly on the orange, which is artificial intelligence, the top UK firms and the AmLaw 1 through 50, many more hits on artificial intelligence, and also on project management, which is the pink part of it, right? So the UK does seem to be out in front, at least in these 260 firms, and what they're saying on their website in innovating in several of these categories. And then I've got an entry for each of these 260 law firms. So probably some of you in the audience work for one of those 260 law firms. So you can take a look after my talk and see kind of where your firm stands. And now what we did is we just have the raw numbers and the number of hits, but we created a 10-point scale to try to have some sort of a baseline for comparison across the firms. Okay, so there's a 0 to 10 ranking that you can look for. And again, I've made it very clear on the website, this is not meant to be a ranking, right? This is just one way to try to measure what are law firms talking about, to try to get a sense of describing what does innovation look like in the industry, what are we actually seeing law firms do? So we can all learn from this and keep iterating to get better in all these areas. So I was actually a bit sheepish about first putting this out there. I thought, well, this is an interesting project, but I don't want to make too much of this, and some interesting data. But it got really great reviews, which I was very pleased to see, and that really resulted in me saying, okay, we need to do this for law schools as well. Let's start trying to assess law schools to the extent to which they're training lawyers to be future innovators, law students to be future innovators. So what I did is I decided, first of all, what we wanted to do is develop a model, a framework for what innovation looks like in a law school that is really founded on training law students to improve legal service delivery. So learning about innovation and technology disciplines that will help them improve their delivery, help expand access to legal services, help get better outcomes for their clients, and so on. And those would be supplemented by law and technology classes. So if you're teaching law and entrepreneurship, for example, well, that's great. But it's not necessarily getting lawyers to stop and think and say, well, gee, how can I actually improve the services that I deliver versus just learning additional law, right? So that was really the focus of this, focus on legal service delivery, innovation, and technology disciplines that are taught. When I went out and looked for law schools that were doing anything or had been recognized as doing anything in this space, and I mostly looked at media accounts of this, I found 40 that were doing something. Now there's probably only maybe 20 that are actually doing a lot around this, but let me walk you through the data so you can see. So these were the categories in building this model of legal service delivery, innovation, and technology disciplines that we were looking for. And what we are counting is whether the school taught a course that had substantial instruction in one of these disciplines. So the first one is the business of law. And I would probably also describe that as operations. It's not just if you're in a law firm or a legal department, but also if you're in a legal aid organization or a court, thinking about how do we improve the way we deliver our services, so the operations function of it, process improvement, leadership, project management, innovative and entrepreneurial lawyering, right? Getting lawyers to think about using the techniques that entrepreneurs and builders use in their practices to build a business and improve legal service delivery. Computational law, so coding for lawyers, but also thinking about how law might be represented as code, blockchain, things like that. Empirical methods, which of course has been around for a long time, and schools have been teaching that, but not enough, I would argue. Data analytics to predict outcomes in cases and things like that. Applied technology, actually using these technologies inside of the law school to build things like document assembly tools, expert systems, things like that. And then technology basics, which is really just getting back to making sure our students understand how to use tools like Microsoft Word and Adobe PDF, which too frequently practicing lawyers really don't know how to use. And we spend so much time in those tools, we ought to be training our students better on how to use them. And then the law and classes we looked at, artificial intelligence in law, blockchain in law, cybersecurity in law. A lot of schools teaching cybersecurity, was pleasantly surprised to find that. Entrepreneurship in law, and e-discovery. So if we look at these disciplines, it gives us a sense as far as what so-called innovative law schools are doing. What are the things that they're teaching in their curriculum? And it helps give us a sense for the bets those law schools are making on how to move the profession forward. This chart right here is then just putting together those 40 usual suspect innovative law schools to show how many of those 10 legal service delivery, innovation, and technology disciplines is being taught at each school. So there's different ways to measure this, and I'd like to in the future measure credit hours and the number of students and things like that. But as a starting point, how many of these disciplines are included in the curricula at these schools? Again, this is all on the website, all available. And also, and one thing that I'd really like to encourage is we have a problem right now that we have too few people who are thinking about law school as an option. Now, some people say that's good. We have too many lawyers, too many people. But we're not attracting the kind of folks who really want to make a difference in the world, and they don't see that the law could be something that help them make a difference. If they've decided they want to go to law school, I hope they consult a resource like this and say, okay, what is that law school doing to prepare me for the future? Is it the same education that was given in 1950 or maybe even 1900? Or has it come along a little bit, and is it teaching some of these other skills that we're making bets on will be important skills to move us into the future? So again, this has gotten a lot of attention, which I was pleased by on the one hand, but then also feel an obligation to try to keep moving this forward. Again, it's a minimum viable product, not meant to be a ranking. It's some information that I think we can do a lot more with, and I hope to do that. So I want to keep updating the law firm catalog. If there's something you're doing innovative in one of your law firms, I'd love to hear about it, and I keep getting additions to it. I want to keep standardizing and analyzing the data. want to survey law firms, but one of the things I'm really focused on right now is expanding this to all the law schools in the United States. I'd like to get all 200 law schools in the United States, and I've had a lot of outreach. This is the other thing. I mean, we're seeing these conferences here in the United States. This is a global phenomenon, and so you're seeing conferences all over in Europe, in South America, in Asia. So there's really a lot of uptake on this. So I want to get all the law schools here, and I've got a form on the Legal Services Innovation website to submit information from law schools. Okay. So again, it's at legaltechinnovation.com. Thanks to LexBlog for hosting the website. I hope all of you will take a look at this information and use it to drive conversations to discuss what are the things that we ought to be doing in our practices to move the profession forward. I love what Ed Walters said this morning about being at a moment in time. I mean, I really believe in lawyers, and I believe that lawyers can add a lot of value in society. But there are a lot of folks that think that we need to show that, right? There are a lot of folks that don't believe that lawyers are holding up their end of the bargain. So it's a great opportunity for us to figure out ways to leverage these technologies and be more client-centric, and think about how do we add greater value? How do we move from talking about solving the access gap and increasing diversity as these ideals to really executing and being more disciplined and thinking about how to move forward and solve these challenges? And I believe we can do that. And I hope that you use the Legal Tech Innovation Index as a way to empower everyone in your organization and have these difficult discussions that need to be happening about how to move the profession forward. Thank you.